Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Pain to Profits. I'm your host, Samson Jagoras, and every single week we unpack the knowledge, wisdom, and expertise of entrepreneurs to help you guys save time and level up on your entrepreneurial journey so you guys can go from pain to profits. And today we're talking about partnerships. We got two incredible partners who work in the insurance space who are going to share a lot about their journey into entrepreneurship, the trials and tribulations that they've gone through, are going through, and the power of having a great partner. So without further ado, Dylan, Jeremy, welcome to the pod.
Hey,
what's
man.
up?
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys a ton. It's funny how small this world is because we've all been connected by like 1 degree of separation for a minute.
Yeah.
And then Dylan and I met because our kids were going to school together. Mm-hmm. And then one day Holt shows up.
That's all right.
Getting after it at the gym that I own, flexing his muscles, his big old muscles,
smiling and dialing.
But we've been connected on social media for years, forever. And we like knew each other, but never really hung out.
Yep.
And you've helped a lot of people who I know with insurance over the years. So, but what I want to do is I want to go back in time. I want to talk a little bit more about you guys individually, and then kind of part that story together on how you came together as partners. Dylan, we'll kind of start with you, man.
Yeah.
Were you always an entrepreneur? Where'd you grow up?
Oh, man, I grew up in southwestern Pennsylvania. I grew up in a small town called Ligonier. My parents were non-entrepreneurs. My dad was an art teacher. My mom was a school nurse. And but my grandfather, John Valino, he owned a mechanic shop in Pittsburgh and gas station. Great stories from Grandpap about like robberies that went bad. And but I didn't really know what an entrepreneur was. Didn't even know how to spell it.
Yeah, I still struggle with spelling entrepreneur sometimes.
But my name is the hardest thing in my world. My mom messed that up when I was young.
Entrepreneur. But no, I grew up in a great household. Baseball, hockey, fishing. A lot of time with parents in the summer, so it was a wonderful life.
Yeah.
But I always had dreams of living out west. That's kind of what you do. Like if you grew up in a coal mining area, like, hey, move west, son. There's opportunity there. And where I grew up, like there's everything. I go back and everything is just closed. You know, car dealerships are closed. You know, restaurants are closed. There's nothing there. There's very little entrepreneurship or opportunity. It's really unfortunate to see.
What do people do? Just work at the mine then?
You know, in Ligonier is a really clean, beautiful town. It's always been more of like a pretty conservative agricultural town.
Okay.
And then it's education. And then you have like Latrobe, which is where there's Kennametal, steel mills, Rolling Rock Beer, Arnold Palmer. That's what Latrobe is. That's where St. Vincent College is. That's where the Pittsburgh Steelers train for, their training camp.
How far away is that?
And it's only 5 miles, 10 miles from Ligonier. Not far at all. You have to go through like a mountain canyon, and you're there. And then you're only I'm about 50 miles east of Pittsburgh.
Got it.
Yeah, my dad grew up in Churchill. Mom grew up in Philadelphia, Japan, all these other places, just all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I loved fishing. My dad was a just absolute enthusiast about the fly fishing, and I played baseball, and then I played hockey, and I fished. And once I realized I wasn't going to be a professional athlete, I was like, man, I don't want to sit in traffic and smell mufflers and have a job. I'm not into that. I'm going to be a fishing guide. So I moved to Steamboat Springs while I was in college. I went to Lock Haven University, which is in central PA. The whole reason why I went to Lock Haven is because it's the only college that actually accepted me. I remember doing my SAT. I literally just filled it in like a Christmas tree. Got accepted. I was like, cool, going to Lock Haven. I'm going to go fishing.
They're like, dude, 500s gets you in SAT.
It was literally like an 850 or something real bad, right? But Lock Haven accepted me, and I had the best trout fishing in the state of Pennsylvania. So that's why I went there. Yeah. I took a joke major called recreation management, so I believe at least. Graduated in 3 years and got to Steamboat Springs to be a fishing guide. That was my goal.
Yep.
My parents are both educators, so they really wanted me to have a college education for plan B, right? Like always, like the best way to ruin someone's life is like, hey, make sure you have a plan B.
Yeah.
Like your kid wants to play football real bad. It's like, well, make sure you have a plan B. That way, if you fail, it's like, no, man. Like, you're not going to fail.
The lukewarm entrepreneurs listening to this right now, you get your foot in, foot out. I got a side hustle.
Yeah.
No, it's just a hustle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all it is.
Yeah.
Never going to make it.
So you're fishing guide. At what point did you meet your wife?
So I met Ashley about a month before I moved to Steamboat Springs, and we talked on the phone for a year.
Wow.
I remember sitting on my back porch, and growing up in southwestern Pennsylvania, you don't see a full moon. It's cloudy. there's a lot of trees, right? Winter's gray, it's long.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting out on the back porch. It was like October. I'm like, wow, look at that full moon. I don't think I've ever seen a full moon before. I'm 21 years old. Like, this is amazing. And I just loved Colorado. It was amazing. But went back. I was deathly afraid of public speech. So I thought I'd be able to graduate college without taking a public speech class.
Yeah.
So I'm a senior. Actually, I was a graduate. I thought I graduated a junior. But they called me up like, hey, you're missing 3 credits of speech communication, like public speech. You got to come back and take it at Lock Haven. Otherwise, we can't give you a diploma. I was like, just keep it. I don't want it. Not going to do it.
I'm fishing.
Deathly afraid of public speech, man. Just like stood up, I just want to puke, right? Just beat red-faced.
Which is crazy
super
because
nervous.
you're so eloquent. You're such a great speaker.
Well, I had to read books and jump into a bunch. I did Toastmasters. I knew what I sucked at.
Yeah.
I knew if I was going to be successful in anything, I needed to learn how to speak, publicly in front of people. But the long story short, fly fishing guide for almost 5 years, met wonderful people, started a property management business with my wife, Ashley, when I was up in Steamboat. A lot of my clients, they own second homes, third homes. And as a fishing guide, you're making $20,000 in the summer. Then you're skiing all winter. Yeah. And that's what you're doing. And you live there for lifestyle. But Ashley was a nanny for a really wealthy family in Steamboat. And he said, hey, I have a property. Can you just manage it for me? Here's a business opportunity for you and your boyfriend. And we started Dash Properties. And we rented out his property. And then I talked to a couple of my clients. They had second, third properties. And we'd rent them out for 25%. And we're 23-year-old kids from southwestern Pennsylvania. We grew up broke. We had everything we needed,
right?
But we didn't have any money. Like old Pontiac Sunfire cars. Jeremy could talk about that. Like Toyota. 20-year-old vehicles that were square from the 80s, right?
Yep.
And anyway, I remember renting out these homes that were beautiful for $1,000 a night over Christmas, and we'd charge them $250 as far as what our service fee was. We'd have 4 homes. We were making $1,000 a night as a couple broke kids from Pennsylvania. And I was like, oh my God, we struck it rich. Like, can you believe we're making money while we're sleeping?
That's like
this
Beverly
is unbelievable. Oh, 100%. Spent every penny.
Yeah.
Had no idea.
So you kind of fell into entrepreneurship.
Well, fell into it there.
Right place, right time.
Yeah. So that was like your first stint?
That was first stint, yeah. Fly fishing guide, you're a 1099 private contractor, but
right.
That was my
kind
first
of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I was like, oh, no taxes, cool, man, nice. Like, wait a second.
Wait, I do have to pay those at the end of the day? Yeah.
What is this? Who's FICA? Like, what is this? So that was the beginning.
Yeah, it's funny that you do benefits now too. That's hilarious. Totally. Jeremy, how about you, man? You're a Jersey guy, right?
Yeah. Fellow East Coaster, born and raised in a little town called Hackettstown, New Jersey. Our claim to fame is we have one of 2 M&M Mars plants. So depending on the time of year, it smells like rotten chocolate or butter. The campus for M&M Mars was right in the middle of town. Pretty much 40% of people worked there. Small little area in New Jersey. They always say, you can drive 10 miles and go through 6 towns in New Jersey. It's that small, but it'll take you an hour and a half to do it, right?
Yeah.
So mom and dad got divorced at the age of 5. Me and my 2 brothers went and lived with mom. Actually went and lived with our grandparents for 5 years until mom could afford to put us up in an apartment. We stayed in the Hackettstown area, but like at the bottom of the mountain. So the top of the mountain, over the mountain, in the valley is where all the rich kids were.
Right.
We were the family of 4 that was living in a 2-bedroom apartment at the bottom. But I got to go to school with kids that, their first car was brand new Dodge Durangos and Yukons, and one kid had a '69 Camaro and
Isuzu Rodeos.
Yeah, no, those were banned. Just the sidekick. Only sidekicks were allowed.
I had a similar experience. Everybody drove, like when we were growing up, everybody's driving the Yukon. That was like the car.
That was it.
And I pull up in my like '87 Blazer where the windows don't roll down and I have no stereo. Yeah, let's go. $1,200. Get some.
1988 Nissan Stanza was the first car.
Ooh, that's sexy.
We called it Georgie Costanza. So until Georgie met a light pole.
That's a different story for a different pod.
Yeah, when I was going to a soccer game. But yeah, no, Single mom, saw dad maybe once every 2 years, every 3 years. When he decided to come around, he's one of those guys you love to hate. You love him because he's dad, but you hate him because of everything he did when you were a kid. So really all we knew was grandparents and mom for the most part. Similar to Dylan, not at all an entrepreneur family, more just get to work. So my mom she was awesome. She did what she could. Same thing with Dylan. We had everything we needed, but money was never an option. I learned to budget when I was 10. I went grocery shopping with a blank check at A&P, the grocery store. My mom walked me over, introduced me to the manager, gave the sign off, said, "Hey, my son's going to come with a check signed for me. He's got a $50 budget per week. He's going to shop for groceries." So that was kind of like I wouldn't call it's by no means an entrepreneur, but it taught me a life lesson back at 10 of like, okay, you got to go to work, you got to budget your money, you got to plan accordingly, and this is how life is done. And if I wanted anything, I got to work when I was 14. So I think that was kind of the beginning for me. Started at McDonald's. I think back then when you're 14, you're only allowed to work 18 hours a week at $4.14 an hour. So it was really crushing it.
Yeah.
$4.14.
$4.14. But it's all right because when I turned 17, Raceway gas was 85 cents. Yeah. So it wasn't too bad to drive around back then. But just took after my mom. She had 2 jobs. I was the middle of 3 kids. So I kind of took the responsibility. My older brother, phenomenal, love him to death, but he went down a path of fun, debauchery, quit school 4 months before he was about to graduate for a girl, ended up getting his GED. He's doing great now, wife, kids, the whole 9 yards. But I was kind of the glue. Yeah, I was the glue between the whole family and just learned, I was making pasta with meat sauce like no one else at 12.
Yeah, that's what you
just
do.
Crushing it at
just
12.
Surviving.
Ramen delights, on repeat. And that was kind of my start. Got a taste of Colorado when I was 19. So I went to college, County College of Morris, affiliate of Rutgers. So got credits at Rutgers, went to the county college route. So I had classes at both, but it was a lot less expensive going to county college, but getting, Rutgers accreditation.
That's cool.
Hated it. Absolutely hated it. I was, to Dylan's point, he had to read books in order to get it. I hated reading. I read one book my entire life. Cover to cover, Hit and Run by R.L. Stein, right? When I was in 6th grade. And I sat on my kitchen, on the bathroom sink with crawled up into a position, feet on this end, and I would go shut the door for 45 minutes a night until I finished. I forced myself in 6th grade to read it and realized that was terrible. And then when audiobooks came out, I can't get enough. I'm probably 3-4 a month at this point. Yeah. But don't have me sit down and read something for a long period of time. I don't proofread. I don't do any of that. So I just learned that college wasn't for me. I started working for a Volkswagen dealership back east. I started as a lot assistant, got into a sales assistant, and it was super high volume. So I was having to do every aspect of sales, but not getting credit for the sale. So I was basically. There was 6 salespeople. It was a phenomenal dealership where they didn't flood it with 20, 30 sales guys. It was 6, and it was by appointment only, and they had 5-6 appointments a day. These guys were crushing it, making $200,000-$300,000 a year back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Jeez.
Yeah, it just was done the right way. But I learned so much from that. I was pitching the cars. I was telling them about the new Volkswagens. I learned every in and out of every car on that market. I knew what gas to put in and not to put diesel in a regular gas, and watched a new diesel bug get regular gas put in it and the motor blew up. And I was like, I never want to be like that guy. So I better learn all of this. And then came out to Colorado to visit, fell in love with it. This is when I was 19 years old, said, I'm done with school. I'm going to move out to Colorado. And rest is history. Been out here since 2001.
What was the first job you got out here?
Technical job. I was working for a guy called Osprey Home Improvements doing painting. It was short stint. I only remember it vividly because I was actually sick as a dog on 9/11. So I was out, and my cousin and I both moved out here. My older brother had already been out here before me, and my roommate came banging on my door, and I was just sick as a dog. And she's like, "You got to come out here and look at the news." And I turned it on. I'm like, "Oh my God!" So I call my cousin, who's up on a ladder, and he puts me on speakerphone, and my boss goes, "I thought you were sick. What are you doing calling us?" I was like, "The World Trade Center just blew up." Like, that's why I'm calling you, right? By the way, I quit.
Yeah.
That was it. That was my last day. I never went back. But I remember being out here. From there on, my first true job, which was probably my biggest learning experience, was sales for a company called True Green Chem Lawn. So lawn care company. Walked in day one. They handed me a stack of papers, that thick, that half of it, the writing on it was so old. There were such old leads. And it's like, here you go. You're going to make 250 calls a night. And the objective is to sell 5 lawn applications or more. Good luck, and put me in a spare room, and
old school, baby.
Yeah, that was it. That was cutting
boiler room
yeah.
stuff.
That's also when people answered their phone.
They did.
Yeah, that's
good
true.
or bad. They answered the phone. I mean,
Yeah,
I've been
rotary
through-
phones with long string. Yeah, it's like,
those are the best. Well, a couple things I just want to pull out of that, and all of us are very similar sitting at this table right now, which is we grew up blue collar, we played sports, money was hard to come by, but what we lacked in money we made up for in hard work and
Grit.
work ethic, and
Yeah.
then college was modestly successful. The only reason I went to college is because I played ball,
Yeah.
and C's get degrees. I lived up to that for sure.
Yeah,
I
C's
got
get
1A
degrees.
my entire.
And that was in football.
Barely. It was just in one class that I actually enjoyed, which
Yeah.
was genetics, which I thought was the coolest thing ever.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, barely got. Funny story. Going into my junior summer,
Sure.
which is supposed to be like the best summer of college, right? I get a call from my advisor, and he's like, "I got some bad news for you." He's sitting down. I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" He's like, "You got to take physics 1 and 2 this summer, and if you don't pass, you can't play." I'm like, "Bro, you got to be kidding me." So yeah,
Is there
it
a
was
tutor
rough.
with that, or
It was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, very rough. Actually, our kicker was super smart. He was an aerospace engineer, so he would tutor me for free.
yeah.
He's the guy that like memorizes, equations in his head.
Yeah, he's just a Texas
I would get,
Instrument. It's just
I would get a
amazing.
whole like note card I could bring, like the size of this sheet of paper right here, and I still couldn't pass the test. So yeah.
Hey, man,
can't
listen.
say it was the sharpest.
A students work for C students.
Yeah,
That's how-
it's
that's how
true.
it
So,
works.
but then all of us went and got stints in sales, and I think
Yep.
that's pretty important if you're going to do anything in entrepreneurship. That
Yeah.
a stint in sales
Start.
is vital. But I always think it's funny that a bunch of blue collar guys make that transition over into the white collar industry. And so, how the heck did you guys get into insurance? Like,
yeah,
what was
Yeah.
the path? Each of you
When we go
Kinda
for-
separate
completely,
thing.
completely different.
Yeah,
But
so
go for it.
I was a fly fishing guy. I'm standing in the middle of the Yampa River outside of Milner, and I'm taking a guy from Chicago. His name's Dick Bernardi, his son Zach Bernardi, and the guy by the name of Jason Jarvis fishing. And I didn't know these guys at all. They just booked me, took them fishing on this private section. Talking to Dick, he owns a company called Windsor Foods. Incredible man, awesome guy. He actually passed away a year later. He got pancreatic cancer and went really quick, but he made a big impact on me. And one of the guys that he was fishing with, who came with us, it's funny, love the guy to death. He was a business partner of mine for 12 years. He wasn't listening. He wasn't listening to me teaching him what to do on drift, cast, etc. And my dad was visiting with me. I said, "Hey, Dad, you want to come with me? I'm taking 3 guys fishing today. You can just come and hang out and take pictures." "Yeah, sure, Dill. You bet." So I'm like, I sent this guy that wasn't listening to me across the river. I was like, "Dad, can you take care of him? He's not listening to me. Just let him flail. Just let him sit there and get knots. And like, he's not listening. So just let him have fun." That guy turns out to be the guy that recruits me in the insurance business. His name's Jason Jarvis. Love him, like I said. A couple years goes by. I'm still in Steamboat. He comes in every once in a while and says hi to me at Straight Line Sports. I moved to Fort Collins. My wife and I, Ash and I, got in the Amway business, and we were pretty excited about residual income, and we fell in love with the business, and that's actually how I came to my faith with Christ. Went to a John Maxwell convention.
Oh, cool.
And he was speaking, and it was wonderful. But I moved to Fort Collins, get a job at 24 Hour Fitness. I'm slinging gym memberships. I run into Jason Jarvis at the Spicy Pickle across the street. He goes, "What are you doing here?" I said, "What are you doing here? I thought you were from Chicago." He's like, "No, I live here. I own an insurance company." I'm like, "Well, I just moved here a year ago. I'm selling gym memberships." He's like, "You need to get in the insurance business." I was like, "What's that?"
never had that before.
Yeah, never had that. Is that they're with the Spicy Pickle? So he's like, "No, I'm serious. You need to sit down with me." So for like 6 months we dated, right? Just talked, met at Mulligan's.
Yep.
And after a little while, 24 Fitness was like, "Hey, you need to change your work schedule where you have to work from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. every day." And while I was building the Amway business, I was working from 8 to 5. Then I'd leave. that I'd go and do presentations down in Colorado Springs, Denver, all over the state, Nebraska, et cetera. And I would be driving, doing presentations at 7, get done at 8:30, and then I'd drive home, get home at midnight, 1 o'clock. And I was like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So I called Jason. I was like, hey, is that insurance gig still available? He goes, yeah. I was like, I'm in.
Yeah. You didn't
That's
know what
how
you were signing up
no
for.
idea. They're like, we'll pay you $30,000 just to open doors for me, and we'll close the deal, but you got to open up the doors. And I said, done. I can do that. Sounds good. That's how I got in the insurance business. Never meaning for it to be my lifestyle income. We always thought we were going to just be really successful in the network marketing industry.
Yeah.
And it turned out that insurance just, for us, blew it out of the water.
Yeah, I mean, insurance is like network marketing on steroids. If you
It
do
is.
it right.
You do it right. And that's where I learned my communication skills through Worldwide Dream Builders, through the Amway business.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that, I'd still be a fishing guide.
Man, that's such good wisdom. I mean, I think that, network marketing, it's probably like a good first step, if you can't get out there and knock
if
doors.
you don't know,
Yep.
There's so many of them, and a lot of them are pitching products. And
Yep.
I was just really fortunate that the only one I ever saw as young, innocent, just not knowing anything about business at all.
Yeah.
The mentoring program of Worldwide Dream Builders is the best one, I think, on planet Earth. If you don't know anything about business,
Yeah.
and you're terrible at communication, and you want to make something of your life, the Worldwide Dream Builders mentoring program, the books they ask you to read, or they don't tell you to read them. They just, hey, this is what you recommend. You're a putz. You don't know how to communicate. Like, you need help.
Yeah.
This isn't just about pitching soap, right? Like you have to better your life. You have to better your marriage. You have to understand your finances. Like, that's what that did for me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How about you?
Completely different. I think going back to the True Green Chemlon days, that's what got me. I was always personable, right? Outgoing, kind of the goofy one, wasn't the tall, attractive jock or, the musician that was just a rock star. I was just the guy that was there. So I kind of had to find a niche, and class clown, funny, always willing to talk, didn't matter. But deep down inside, like, super emotional and nervous as all hell, right? Like, no one really knew when I would get up on stage and even sing back then, like, borderline shitting my pants. Like, I was like, this is not going to go well, until like something just clicked and you like tune everybody out, and it was good. But at True Green, I advanced from the paper stack to actually hitting the streets. And it went from 250 phone calls a day to 250 door knocks. Then had super good success doing that, to then running a team of 17, knocking on doors and so on and so forth. But to Dylan's point, it got to a point where I was coming in at 8:30, 9 o'clock every morning, and working until 9 o'clock every night, and Saturdays included. So it was like brutal. Decided to get out of that, go into the motorcycle world, selling bikes. It's awesome. Loved it. Until I got a MySpace request from what's now my wife.
Nice.
I hadn't talked to her in 6 years, and she goes, I heard you were back home and you didn't see me. And I was like, who are you? Right? I haven't seen
for all you
forever.
young bucks listening to this, MySpace was the prequel to Facebook. So
Yeah.
you could put music on there. It was just like super.
Tom is still friends with Tom from MySpace.
You still have a MySpace account?
No, I probably do. Never shut it down,
still
but
have
We should bring it
Yeah,
back
AOL
right on
account
this
too.
pod, right? Just bring it back MySpace.
that's it.
Whoever's listening to this, if you can send me your MySpace account and show me that you actually still own it, I will give you a free year to our newsletter. Because you're that cool in my book. I'm going to go hunt for mine tonight.
It's the OG.
Don't
It's
tempt
the
me
OG
with
social media.
Google, it'll get me there. But I ended up moving back to New Jersey, crazy enough, in 2007. So my wife and I reconnected, flew out 5 times in 3 months, fell in love with her. She's like, move back to Jersey. I said, move to Colorado. She said, no way. Neither one of us had anything really good going on at that point. So I up and left, and it was struggle back in Jersey. It was a ton of work. It was expensive, like $1,700 for a 1-bedroom apartment. And I had no job, right? I mean, I was going out there. I probably had 20 grand in the bank, and that lasted maybe 3 months, right? Affording a car that I had a payment on, food, having fun, so on and so forth. So I actually went and started the interview process with a company called ADP. ADP, as you guys probably all know, big payroll organization. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. It took me 9 interviews, and that was their normal process.
Wow.
2 full role plays, which was nerve-wracking, like beyond nerve-wracking. I had to sell something. I think it was a chair, right? Sell this chair to me, right? Instead of the pen or whatever it may be. So I did. They told me my biggest downfall, I got the job, but you need to work on your eye connection, right? Like you don't look people in the eyes. And I told him, I said, I apologize, but I'm legally blind in one eye. And he goes, okay. And I'm like, I have the super self-conscious about my eyes because I don't know which direction my right eye is going, right? If I'm drunk, you're like, there he is, because it's gone. It just sinks in and goes away, right? It's over. So I was just born with no muscle functionality in my right eye. And face to face was super self-conscious about it the whole time. I would look down, look to the side, like, if I didn't know you, like I wasn't looking at you.
Yeah.
But I had to, right? I had to learn that. And they taught me, like, no matter what you do here in Jersey, you better look somebody in the eye, right? And I remember vividly my first meeting, about 5'5" Italian accountant, right on the water in Jersey City, overlooking New York. I go set an appointment, and the first thing he says to me is, "How fucking long are you going to be here?" And I go, "What? Well, the appointment is for a half hour." And he's like, "No." He's like, "I see a new one of you every 6 months. How long are you going to be here?" I was like, "Well, I hope to make this my career, sir." And he goes, "All right, sit down," right, like that. So I learned in that meeting, well, whether you plan on being here long enough, you better tell them the right thing that they want to hear to at least keep this meeting going. So speed up 10 months, hated New Jersey, wanted back to Colorado. I told my wife, I love you, but I'm going with or without you. She said, okay, I'll come. Moved back to at the very end. So moved out there in like March of 2007, December 28th. We got in both of our vehicles in U-Haul and moved out here. Started payroll out this way, but I was giving all of my referrals away. So part of building my network, my book of business, was asking the questions that nobody else would ask. Who's your banker? Who's your CPA? Who does your insurance? Who's your 401k? So I was looking for avenues where I can go give you, the 401k guy, a lead, and you give me one in return or whatever it may be, right? Like give before you shall receive. That's just how I've always been. And along the way, met a couple good insurance agents, and both of them, I had a couple agencies saying, same thing to Dylan, why don't you just come sell insurance? And I was like, ugh, seems like a lot of work, insurance. It's not really interesting to me. And the exact same thing, to Dylan's point, they said, well, there's residual income. You don't have to start over every year. And I was like, sweet, when are we gonna meet? Like, I want to do this. And that was 2011, 2012. Very similar guy that Dylan and I knew each other through 24-Hour Fitness, knew that he was in the insurance world. Jason, met him along the way. A couple other agencies in town, interviewed with both, decided to go work the same route that Dylan was, and that kind of started our partnership way back.
Jason and I were sitting at Moxie Java. Remember where Moxie Java was?
How vaguely?
It's where Gabe's Bagels is now, across from the group on Harmony.
Yep.
Jarvis and I are sitting there, and this guy pulls up with, would you have a Stanza still?
Mm-mm.
What'd you have?
Probably a Volkswagen back then.
He had something, and the whole back, his rear mirror, everything had TLC payroll on it.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, this guy's just running around schlepping payroll, right? Yeah. And Jason looks at me and goes, we got to hire that guy. I was like, really? I was like, I know Jersey. He's like, you need to introduce him to me.
What did he say? What was the reason?
He's like, that's the guy you want to hire.
Because he had the hustle, payroll. He understood the connection between those two things. He knew
he probably wrote payroll for 500 companies in Northern Colorado, right? So just that's and me being as green, I was only 2 years in the insurance business, I think, at that time. I was like, huh. And then Jeremy came in. Jeremy interviews a couple companies. He decides to partner with us at that agency in Johnstown, and he came in and radically opened our eyes to how much we really didn't know how to create opportunities, and not just for yourself, but for your peers.
Will you clarify that? I think that's super valuable.
Yeah. So Jeremy was very well connected with certain CPAs. Like, he's very well connected with payroll, very well connected with attorneys. Like, he knew him. He's been a part of NOCO 2030, which is now called what? Sorry.
NOCO Unify.
NOCO Unify. And he's been doing that, 20 years?
That just saved me a fine if I don't mention NOCO Unify if I'm in some kind of meeting like this.
Nice.
It's like $100 fine, so thank you. I appreciate it.
So a lot of really dynamic professionals are part of that organization. But he'd ask the client, hey, who's your payroll vendor? Who's your CPA? How's it going? Who's your banker? How's that relationship going? Right? Everything,
a value adder.
all the way through, just adding value. And then if they were like, that's okay, right? He'd go, would you be open to meeting, this guy or this guy or this gal or this gal? And he'd facilitate that introduction, adding value, right? Just trying to not really round out the account. That was never really his goal or my goal. Was to we want to add value because we know these people are professional. They're going to take care of you. They're going to answer their emails. They're going to answer their phone calls no matter when you call, right? And they want you to be successful.
Yeah, and they're adjacent to the network that you want to hit, right?
It's all connected.
It's it's odd to think that someone, and not to toot my own horn, but that someone was actually wanting to better the people you're doing business with, right? And the reason why I would ask that question isn't so I can tout, hey, I got you 6 leads or whatever, is the more I can get involved with people that I know and trust, the more I think I can make an impact in your business. Yep. So if I truly vetted out a CPA and that CPA crushes it in the dental world or crushes it in the construction world, and you're struggling with your CPA, I'm going to bring you someone that is known and proven and that I vetted myself. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to hand deliver you to somebody else, right? It's the same thing. Dylan and I do the exact same thing when it comes to bringing on a new client. Like, our world is super easy and really difficult all at the same time when it comes to acquiring a client. If you say, hey, we're having drinks, you're a cool guy, you can take my business, I have you sign a piece of paper, I'm your broker, right? The next week, somebody else comes and does it, you sign the piece of paper, and I'm no longer your broker, right? Mm-hmm. So what are you doing to maintain that client? What are you doing to make sure that you're vested, you're taken care of? And those are the people that I would look for and refer in business back and forth. And long story short, you take care of people, you send them business, they're going to trust you too. They're going to send you business back, and you're no longer knocking doors. You're no longer making 250 phone calls a day. Yeah. You're handling, leads or clients that need you, and you're getting vetted from a trusted partner, and the rest is history.
Third-party referral, man, that's the best kind of referral you can get.
It is. It's viral marketing, right?
And the level of loyalty you create with that customer. So when, not if, when the next guy tries to pitch them,
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like, Jeremy's my guy, Dylan's my guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they work with this CPA and they work with this payroll company. And
or banks with them.
Yeah, why would I cut my leg off to just save a couple bucks,
Not to go off on a tangent, but still my true entrepreneurial passion down the road. I don't know that there's any money involved in this, but I've always wanted to open up a business titled I Got a Guy, right? It's such an East Coast term, but I do.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I got a guy.
I get called all the time. It's like, hey, I need a garage door guy. I got a guy.
Yeah.
Jeremy is literally, you should get a tattoo. It says, I got a guy.
I got a guy.
On your forearm.
I mean,
because it's if you bring up anything,
yep.
Jeremy's like, I got a guy.
Yeah.
And he literally does.
They're good. And they're good people, right? I mean, you just vet it out. And the ones that, that aren't good, you don't throw them in the I got a guy file. So
yeah, because the opposite can be true.
Yeah.
That's happened to me too.
I know a guy you don't need to deal business with too, right? I mean, they say that bad business spreads way faster than good business.
No doubt.
It's, so be on the good side of that business. So hopefully you get 10%, not the 90 that says you're terrible.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Well, we got from where you guys started, how you grew up, to how you got into the business, to how you came to know each other.
Yeah.
How did the formal partnership start? And then there's this transition period too. I mean, there's a story there too. So I'd love to know that, and then how you guys came together.
Yep. That's I'll dive into that one quickly. I mean, we could go 6 hours on this conversation, but Dylan and I are completely different, right? Tall, dark skinned, handsome over here.
Thanks.
Tans like a sun bum,
like a Navajo Indian.
freckled out, bald Irish Scottish guy over here that runs his mouth too much, right? Perfect match. But we believe in the same things. We've always done it the same way. Our families get along. Our kids are friends. I mean, we have been together in the past, right? I saw things that I didn't think were going to be long term at an agency we were previously at. No, to no fault of their own, it just wasn't going to work out long term. I got out of there. We stayed in connection, to an extent. Obviously, when you go from being partners to competing against each other, you're still friendly, but along the way, we never competed, never went after each other's business, but stayed in contact. Maybe 4 years after that fact, we reconnected, went to another agency where we were partners, but we'd always joke around, right? Whether having cocktails or out at breakfast, like, why don't we just do this on our own, right? Like, we're making a lot of people a lot of money. These clients are not buying the logo on our business card. They're not calling, the phone's not ringing off the hook at an insurance agency of people saying, I really want to do insurance with you. So we kind of joked about it. I mean, even going back 6 years ago, and said, let's do this, right? But two scared East Coast kids were like, well, the income's good, and
we're going to get sued.
And we don't really know who's going to give money for an insurance policy. Yeah. So it was always an idea. It's been around for a long time. Probably took us 4 years to being together to even think of that. And then another 7 in order to finally say, you know what, all the respect in the world to the agencies that we worked at, but be better off if we go start something from scratch and make an impact back in the community versus risk being sold or risk having somebody else come in and take over or a different direction that they want to go. And at the end of the day, our clients who bought into us are gone or can't trust us, or who knows what the outcome's going to be. And we wanted control of the next 25 years.
So, I mean, that's entrepreneurship, right? I mean, true entrepreneurs go in, learn as much as they possibly can about an industry or business and go, I think I can go do this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like every general contractor, they're training guys. They're going to step out and be their own GCs.
Yes.
Or fabricators, whatever it may be. It's oil and gas for sure, right?
Yep.
You hire a guy, you invest time into them, they're making 6 figures or more, and then they go, I can start my own business and do this.
The hardest part, I think, about your industry is you build up this incredible book of business. And buying the book back, is it the term you guys use?
Yeah, if it's allowed, right? I mean, you want to go purchase your book of business, right? Because obviously a book of business has income behind it, commissions that are ultimately going to the agency that's you're housed under, and you get a certain split of that commission. So, I mean, our goal is like, we want to do this. We want to control where the commissions go. We want to be able to give bonuses to our staff. We want to be able to give back in the community where we live in. We want to do something different with the money that's coming in. It's not like we need bigger houses and fancier cars. We're going to do this. Let's enjoy it. Let's make sure our families prosper, but make sure the community and the people we do business with prosper even more.
Right. And let's take, the clients, the true entrepreneurs are not the insurance geeks. They're the GCs. They're the landscaping companies. They're the manufacturing companies. Like, those are the guys that have serious money in their business. Insurance guys, I mean, you can get your insurance license and start your own business tomorrow.
Yeah, it's relatively scalable from an overhead standpoint, right?
For sure. Very much so.
It's more of a time thing and how networked up you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you bring on your book, you can do this organically. I have a really good buddy. I told you about him, Adam Greist. He's back in Latrobe. He built a tremendous manufacturing company.
Yep.
His overhead is millions upon millions of dollars, and he crushes it. And he grew up as an entrepreneur. His grandfather owned a food service company. His dad owned a events company, and him and his brother took over the events company, and then they took the money and built a manufacturing company, and now they're building like a bank.
Yeah.
Instead of giving the loans to this credit union, they're like, hey,
let's bank ourselves.
Yeah. Which is, by the way, why I haven't reached out. He's like, no, I'm going to take it this way and go. I was like, hey, man, go for it. You're going to make $1 billion. Good for you.
Yeah, good for it.
But you can start your own insurance business tomorrow. But if you want to bring over a book of business,
right,
you better have some dough because you're going to get sued. It's going to happen. And that's scary.
It's just common.
It is
because they don't want you sign a non-compete or something.
They really want to stifle your business. They want to get in between your ears and slow you down.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. I mean, I've been through it, and it's like, hey, keep the pedal down. You're building a company, and you love your wife and kids. You love your clients. Go get new business. Don't focus on the negative, right? Like, you got to focus on production. And that's easy for us to say. I'm 39. Jeremy, what are you? You 39?
49.
49.
Or 41. God, I feel 56 right now.
Yeah.
Broken back, hurt, but that's
all right. But my buddy Adam was like, hey, man, just grow organically. Don't buy in your clients. That way you have no overhead. I'm like, well, you're smart. I should listen to you. But I can't leave my clients high and dry.
Right.
So I can't do that. Right. Like the ones that want to come with me, I'll take them. And I'm going to take care of them.
Yeah.
But if they don't call me, then they're fine with where they're at.
Well, and it's not cheap to buy the book, right?
No, it's typically 1.5 or 2 times annual revenue. So you're in the hole for 2 years.
Yep.
Before you even make a penny. And then you have business.
You got staff, right? You got location. So I mean, in the grand scheme of things, becoming a licensed insurance agent, super easy. Starting an agency, not so easy, right? I mean, you got to find the brick and mortar, right? You're not going to do it out of your house. People aren't going to say, hey, yeah, I want to come to your office. Oh, by the way, it's my front room in my house, right? Well, you might be able to do that, but you're not going to be successful long term. I don't know the exact stats, but the success rate of an insurance broker is, I mean, I would say less than 15% make it long term, right? And we're not talking, hey, call every family member and sell them a life insurance policy. We're talking big business. You're getting in with groups that are 50 employees to 5,000 employees or maybe even above and truly becoming a partner and creating a long-term strategy for their benefits.
Yeah, their annual premiums like $100,000 to millions.
Right.
Right. It's not,
Yeah, you're not selling
any entrepreneur.
Yeah, a motorcycle policy or a 20K life insurance policy, right? So what we do in the side of business that we do, the success rate is small. Just because it's a grind, right? I mean, and few people aren't willing to put that long-term effort in, put the grind in and keep, especially starting over, right? I mean, that's a whole different conversation, but starting from scratch, building something and then saying, you know what, I'm going to leave some of that behind because it just makes sense and contractually we have to. But we're going to go start this for the right reasons because we know the next 25 years are going to be even better than the last 5.
Yeah.
We're really fortunate in Colorado. Northern Colorado is incredible as far as just there's a tremendous amount of entrepreneurialism here, right?
Absolutely.
What you have here compared to where I grew up and where Jeremy grew up is that back on the East Coast you have, Frank, his grandfather's been my insurance guy, and then his son Frank Jr., he's now my insurance guy, and then his son Frank III is going to be our insurance guy. I'm serious. That's how it is. And they're like, we're not going to work with
Frankie, not Frank.
Frankie. Yeah, it's Frankie. So here you have Dylan and Jeremy who moved here. It's first generation business owners, right? You're first generation business owner, right? Like and you're developing those relationships now. And that's dynamically different where you are in the country as far as the success of a commercial insurance brokerage, for sure.
So you guys pull the ripcord and you make the leap, and you were hunting to find somebody to help you seed the investment that you needed to buy the book of business.
Correct.
Books of business, correct?
Yep.
And then you make this connection with FNBO, First National Bank of Omaha.
Yeah.
And the story changes drastically.
It does.
And it's really cool. And part of why I want everybody to hear the story is you got to be in the game if you're ever going to get a shot like that, right? So you guys never would have got this shot if you hadn't been in the game and said, hey, we're pulling the ripcord. We're not entirely sure how we're going to go do it.
Yep.
We're going to go figure it out.
Yeah.
It, it takes a leap of faith, and all you really got to do is pick up the phone and make the first call, right? So
that's the start.
Dylan and I just, chatting like, hey, if we're going to do this, let's look at it. Let's see what it looks like, right? The crazy part about it is we started looking at it, but at the same time maintained some insane numbers with the company. So we never slowed down, right? Back to Dylan's point, what are we focused on doing here? Growing our business and taking care of people. So that never, ever came out of scope, right? Even the organizations that we left, we crushed it. We absolutely crushed it.
Top producers.
Yeah, it was that was our main focus. And, in our small amount of downtime, we thought about ourselves, right? Hey, let's do this long term. So talked to a first banker. He was like, love the idea, but it's kind of hard because technically it's not guaranteed income. And if they don't come with you, all the income you're buying could be gone tomorrow, right?
If they do come with you, you can be fired in a month. Right. You can lose your revenue because that's how the benefits business works, right? Same with the PNC, but kind of with the PNC, but mostly benefits.
So it's not the easiest business to lend money for because there's no building, there's no vehicle, there's no equipment, there's nothing really behind it outside of them believing in the two guys that currently hold the rights to that insurance policy. So first guy said, yeah, we could do it, but you're both going to have to put your houses up. You're probably going to have to come up with about $500,000 each. We look at each other and we're like, we're strong. Let's pretend this. Yeah, that's fine. We're good. Deep down inside, we're like, yeah, that's not going to work. Yeah. I'm not giving up my house, not put my family at risk. I make one more phone call to a good buddy of mine who is with FNBO, and his exact words in the first 30 seconds were, yep, we got you. We do that all the time. We love the insurance world. I was like, sweet. Not what I was expecting, right? I was actually sitting, freezing, my nuts off in an ice rink, which is pretty much where I live 75% of my life for my kid. He just down in Boulder at an ice rink. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make the call today. Just sitting here bored. I'm going to make a call. And He says, yeah, we love that. We've got several, under our portfolio right now. He goes, but before we give you money, we've been trying to get into Colorado for years, right? We've got a 105-year-old insurance agency based out of Nebraska, multiple locations, multiple states, but Colorado is where we want to go next. I said, okay, I'll take a listen. He's like, 2 days later, sends me a text message and said, hey, Scott, the agency president wants to speak with you. I said, sounds good. Here's my cell phone. I'm not kidding. Less than 60 seconds later, the phone rings. I'm like, whoa, okay, this is a Nebraska number. I recognize it. I'm like, all right, I pick it up. And if you live anywhere near Harmony Road, the cell phone reception is absolutely terrible.
The Bermuda Triangle.
So I make a hard right into
sense.
the Walmart, Murphy gas station parking lot right there at 25 and Harmony. And I'm in the gas station parking lot for an hour and 20 minutes, having a conversation with these people, just getting to know them getting to know us. And the conversation ends with, hey, outside of me coming out there and making you an offer, let's do this the right way. And my next exact statement was like, well, it's not just me, it's me and Dylan, right? Like this is it. So I was like, we got two options, right? Like we can go down this path, or the bank, it sounds like the bank's willing to lend us money. And what honestly threw me over the edge was the agency president, who had no skin in the game if the bank would have lent us money, right? Technically, we would have been competitors. He goes, by the end of this, he goes, you're either going to come work with us. He has never said for us. He said, you'll either come work with us, or we'll be the ones cheering you on from behind, knowing that the bank's making a little bit and that you guys are crushing it in the community. And he said at the very end of the call, he goes, whether you believe this or not, you and I would have been on a phone call in the next week. And I said, what do you mean? He said, we have a list. I said, a list? He goes, yep, we've come out. We've met with 8 different agencies. None of them are a cultural fit, or the other ones don't want to sell. We've met with several people that we were told to meet with, not a cultural fit. He said, but Jeremy, your name is top of this list of people that we should be talking to on the benefit side of things. And he said, well, just think about the property casualty side. Who would you want on that? I said, okay, that's good. Benefits world. I said, well, you would start with 2 of the best producers in Northern Colorado. And he said, I absolutely love it. Right. So that was that. Speed up, several meetings, phone calls along the way. We made the leap January 1 of this year to kick this thing off, and we have a Circle One logo and FNIC behind it.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, it's funny because Jeremy called me and said, hey, you'll never believe this. He told me this story. I was like, not interested.
Yeah.
Not interested in a bank-owned insurance agency. Been a
Because you
part
guys
of
have
it.
seen it happen.
Been a part of it. We crushed it, knocked out the ballpark, and then went over like a turd in a punch bowl. Like, not good. Okay. So not every bank I've seen that owned an insurance agency just didn't. Like Wells Fargo sold theirs. What are some other ones? They've all sold them.
Yeah.
And it's because bankers
Very rarely does
don't
it
like
work.
risk.
Yep.
Insurance guys love risk. It's what we do, right?
Yep.
So it works as long as you just let them be separate. So I wasn't really committed at all until December 15th.
Yep.
What was the turning point? What convinced you?
You know, the biggest thing, it wasn't necessarily, I didn't really care about having, hey, Valino's insurance agency or Holt and Valino's insurance. I didn't care about that. It was more so, okay, what can I build that I know for a fact private equity is not going to buy it? I don't want private equity. I don't want VC money, right? I want these guys. I want an independent insurance agency that's not going to sell, and something that I can pass on to my kids,
Right.
or someone that I can mentor in the business. My kids decide, hey, I don't want anything to do with insurance. I'm going to do this, this. Great, awesome. I'll be your biggest cheerleader. But options, right? It's. I didn't have the option to stand on my father's shoulder because he didn't build something that was entrepreneurial. He's an art teacher. Great, right? I took what was best of my dad, which he taught me how to fly fish. That was me standing on my dad's shoulders. But I was like, what can I do? What can I build? Like, I'm going to build this insurance business. I've got 25 good years left, God willing, to build this business. I just don't want the rug to be pulled out from underneath me because it was sold to a large corporation that, it's just ridiculous. They don't leave you alone, right? They manage you, right?
Yes.
And most insurance guys, gals, they don't need to be managed if they've made it. They've built a good business. They just need to let their, the wings fly and let them,
work with their clients. It was actually the long-term play of, hey, when you retire, we have 10 years of equity. That I was like, okay. I was like, all right. So we're talking.
That's different.
That's different. Like, explain that to me, right? Yeah, it's just unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, for people who don't understand, when you retire, there's what do they call it? There's like there's a name for that period of time when they give you the 10 years of equity.
Yeah, I don't know the exact name, but they basically what they want, right? And the whole point of the agency that we went to is they're not looking to sell, right? They're not looking to turn a quick buck, right? I mean, you're talking a multi-billion-dollar bank, right? And the insurance agency is a area to service their clients and their community to make sure that people that they're giving money to, taking care of, are also taken care of responsibly on the back end.
Right.
So they also, it's not just a, hey, Dylan, you're gone tomorrow. Sounds good. We'll pay you for 10 years. It's, can you mentor someone to make sure that your accounts are taken care of? Can you make sure that the relationships are maintained 10 years past when you're gone? Because it's not a quick one and done. We want these people, as long as they're in business, we want to be their insurance agency. We want to be their bank.
It's a beautiful thing.
We want to be their
right?
partner.
So I'm 39. So usually whenever we lose business, it's because of acquisitions. That's at least what it was like whenever, like pre-COVID. And in the past 3 years, we've kind of been in this whirlwind of, hey, we're part of this business, but I need to build my own business. Like, what's this look like? Kind of just up in the air, right? But now it's what was I even getting to? What was I talking about? You remember? You remember?
You're just talking about the long game options,
the retirement side
plans.
of things.
Yeah, like there's something beautiful about mentoring someone and passing on a business to them, a legacy to them, right?
Yes.
And anyone that doesn't have that, has seen that, whether it be a friend or a different family member, like cousin or something, like, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That their parents, dad, mom, grandpa, passed on something to them because they were literally thinking about them 50 years ago, 25 years ago, whatever it may be. Yeah. That's something that's romantic, really.
Yeah, it's actually biblical.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Your money should last 3 generations. Right. Your children's children's children. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I think ultimately it comes down to being able to build wealth is about really building a legacy. And you go work for a big agency, you're just a glorified employee ultimately. And so that was your fear, right? Of like, I'd rather go suffer for 5 years and eat ramen to have 20 years of legacy and the potential to pass it on to my kids or the next generation or something.
And you
like
have
that.
to pay that price in order to have that opportunity.
And every entrepreneur who's listening to this gets that. And or if you're wanting to become an entrepreneur, just like that is the price. That is the pain in order to get to profits. See what I did there?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I like it.
That's pretty.
It was good. Yeah. It's like you guys teed me up for that softball, buddy. But it's true. It's the price you have to pay in order to get that. And most people are unwilling to get that uncomfortable, right? To take maybe the step back financially in order to do that. You guys just found a unique situation where you're with the right.
One of a kind.
It is one of a kind. It's like a franchise inside of a bank meets a business opportunity meets I don't even know. It's crazy. Entrepreneurs.
It's not common, but you have to be in the game. And we've been in the game. I mean, we've been hustling for 20 years.
Yep.
Right. Maybe even longer than that. Whenever you talk about, being a W-2 as a teenager and just starting your life, right? You have to. You got to start. Yep. But you got to be in the game and you got to understand it and be a professional in order to even have an opportunity.
Would you guys have done anything differently if you could, now that you're just kind of sitting back looking at where you're at right now and what you stepped into?
At this point, I would say no, right? I mean, I don't know that I would have done – well, yes, actually. I would have probably taken – after leaving the first agency that I ever worked at, I probably would have taken a different route and gone maybe a year or two, still in the same industry, but maybe on the carrier side or something just to get a different perspective. So I didn't face 3 years of, legal non-compete, right? So I think that's the worst part. So if I could have changed any aspect of it, that's probably would have been it. When Dylan was leaving, he called me and said, "Hey, what do you think I should do?" And I said, "Get out." Like if I could have done this differently, he asked me that question. I said, "Get out for 2 years, right? Like go work for United, Cigna, go find an ancillary job and just meet every Tom, Dick, and Harry broker that we've competed against."
And as a entrepreneur, you're like, ugh,
it sounds like death.
Gross. I'd rather just go back to being a fishing guide, which would be awesome.
Yeah.
But go back to being a fish guide and make $30,000 and eat top ramen.
Right. But knowing now, right? I mean, it's when you deal with the headache of the contractual side of things, I would say that's the biggest nightmare in the world, and no one wins. No one wins. The clients don't win. We don't win. Attorneys
always
win. That's 100% true. Attorneys, that's it. So anyone listening to this, become an attorney. You will make, regardless if someone's starting, ending, suing, you will get paid. Yeah. But I think that's the only thing probably change as far as that goes long term. Is there always the thought in the back of the head, like, hey, what if this really was all ours and we got to keep all of it? Yes, that comes in all the time, but I'm also, once the critical, EBITDA questions come in and the mortgage payments due and the lighting bill and the $250,000 build out of the new facility and having to hire a $125,000 salary employee, like at the back day, I'm like, oh, I'm just thank God that's not coming out of my pocket. Or that, Dylan and I don't have to, put up a
personal guarantee.
Yeah. Or call grandpa and say, hey, grandpa, I know you're like 2 years away from kicking it, but that 250 you got sitting around, can I have that now? Right?
Can I put a lien on your house?
Yeah. It's that part of it. But having the freedom to still go and build what we want with who we want, how we want to do it, is just a one-off partnership that we have, with FNIC and FNBO that is just super hard to find.
And for perspective, like if you're going to build anything great, big of magnitude, you're going to need partners.
Correct.
And that's going to require you to give up equity. You need somebody to find the deal or start the business, somebody to get it over the line, somebody to bring the money, somebody to make it viable business, and then one day somebody to sell it on the back end if that's an option, right? So that's 100% split 5 ways. And money is valuable for sure. It's like maybe worth 20%, but at the end of the day, you're going to give up equity regardless. Unless you want to keep it small, keep it all. Then just being into own a book of business, work for an agency, and don't have any aspiration of building anything bigger.
Yep. Yeah. Come and you go as you please. Don't answer to anybody. But I mean, I think it's nice having to have people call us and say, hey, how are you doing it? How'd you do it there? Can you teach us here? Cool. Right. I think that's probably the most exciting part of the first 5 months is that piece of it.
What are the biggest challenges you guys see ahead for yourself?
Can I share real quick on?
Yeah, go for it.
I have no regrets at all when it comes to like where I am right now in the insurance business with Jers, but there's a lot of other regrets that I would have. More so, not leaning in, and like you can actually take a lot of time off in the insurance business. You can be lazy.
Yeah,
you can get to a point where you're making a couple bills a year, especially for a kid that never made any money, and go, wow, this is pretty cool.
$100,000 this year, just kind of doing nothing.
I'm going to the JW instead of the courtyard.
Yeah, and using your Marriott points and not paying a penny, right? But it's like, if you can literally just keep your work ethic up that made you successful in the first 3 to 5 years and do it for 10, you can crush it.
Yeah.
You can really crush it. And just always just be pointed, be sharper with understanding the industry, because every industry is changing. As you say before, the only thing consistent about any business is change. That's it, right? Especially now, especially over the past, I'd just say 5 years. So much has changed. But working even more so than what I did, should have. But you can't. Now I can do that. Right? I'm only 39. You can always put more time into it.
Yeah, I think there's a constant reframing we have to go through. They say statistically speaking, you'll make $50,000 plus or minus of what the highest income earning person in your household made. So, my dad probably in his best year maybe made 85.
Yeah.
Right? As a contractor or carpenter, right? So, you make 150, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, Dad, guess how much money I'm making.
And this is the importance of hanging around people that are doing better than you.
Yeah.
And the importance of people are making more money than you.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you're going, okay, wow, I made 150. That guy just made 500. And they hang around the guys making 500, and all of a sudden the guys make a couple million. You're like, okay, why not me? What's preventing me from doing that?
Yep.
And you got to constantly recalibrate. That's what I call it. Recalibrate by just who you're hanging out with.
Yeah.
Not to say you forget who came up with you, but yeah, you get comfortable. Show me your 5 closest friends. I'll show you your future, right? So
100%.
And those, as you go along, right? Going back to potential regrets, uncontrollable out of our, but still regret. mean, I mentioned it before, the starting over, right? We've talked about it all the time. Like if we maintained, to Dylan's point, if we did what we did steady with this option, but 12 years ago, we would both be multimillionaires. We'd be making over $1 million a year. We would be crushing it. We would have a huge book. We would be the absolute force, which we will end up being in this community. But when you get to a certain point, you're like, yeah, this is going well. And then you start over. And then you build it up to that, speaking on my behalf, and then you start over, right? And then it's like, oh, how many times am I going to go backwards to go forward? But a lot of times you have to, right? I mean, with starting a business, whether it's the logo, whether it's the expertise, whether it's the avenue that you're wanting to go down, whether look at a Martin Lind, for example, right? Like different communities, different markets, right? Water Valley went from the greatest thing in the world to 2008. It's like, how the heck are we going to even make this thing work? To the most booming metropolis around here, right? Things like that. So it's the ups and downs that you navigate. So if I could have changed it, which I mean, it's impossible to do that, I would have had to not start over 2 or 3 different times. And then we would be in cruise mode, but I wouldn't have also learned 90% of what I've learned on how to do it the right way if we didn't have to start over.
Yeah, and people come in your life too. Like, I wouldn't have had this opportunity if it wasn't for someone saying, hey, man, you should sell insurance.
I see potential in you.
Yeah, right. So me reading books and just engaging in conversation with Jason was enough for him to go, hey, man, you'd be an asset for you to work with me. And then I'm grateful for him. I'm grateful for the guys that hired me at PFS. And then I'm grateful for the guys that hired me at the agency out of Arizona. Like, super grateful. I learned so much. So did Jeremy. But now it's like, okay, I'm home.
Yeah.
Let's build this. Let's like, no more dual-minded stuff. We know where we're at. Let's go.
Yep.
Yeah. I think too, like through your 20s, especially, you're still trying to figure out who you want to be when you grow up.
Even like early, trust.
Early 30s. I mean, I got a degree in human physiology. Graduated on a Friday, walked into a stocks and commodities bond on a Monday. 3 months later, I'm a newly crowned broker, and the Dow Jones falls 777 points to set off the housing crisis. Then I was going to go be a financial planner. I was going to go work for Country Financial.
Oh, yes.
And then got the opportunity to go lead strategy at a marketing and technology company. I have no business doing. I'm a blue collar kid, man. I was supposed to go sling hammers. That's what I was supposed to do. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's be prepared to pivot and start over. And we grossly overestimate what we can do in a year. Undervalue 3 to 5 years. I think for me, if I had to go back and say, what's my biggest regret? It was not taking the leap sooner.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
It's always regret, right?
But it's the golden handcuffs, right? It's like, yeah, I'm making 150, I'm making 200, I'm making 250, I'm making 300. And it's like, oh, how do I recover that?
Right.
It's like, well, you probably won't right away, but long term, you're playing the long game.
What's the goal? Is the goal just money?
Right. Freedom.
The goal's not just money, right?
There's Dan Sullivan. He's a great entrepreneur, coach of other entrepreneurs. I love it. He wrote a book called The Self-Managing Company. He talks about the 4 freedoms of entrepreneurship, and every entrepreneur is chasing these. The first one's freedom of time. The second one's freedom of money, then freedom of relationship, and then freedom of purpose. And that's ultimately what we're going for. When we're trying to get a legacy business, that is a self-managing company that has other people running it, that then gives you the income that you need to go do the thing you want to do. Like, dude, I'm going to go build whatever communities and bring clean water to a little tribe in Africa or something, whatever that is. But when we put money before time, we have a job.
Yeah.
And so, if you're working for somebody else or even in your own business, right, you're not reinvesting back into your business and you're just keeping it small, keeping it all, man, you are definitely just creating a job for yourself.
Yeah.
That's the biggest trap of entrepreneurship,
100%.
solopreneurship.
Absolutely. You don't know how to duplicate.
Exactly.
You're the guy. You're the gal. You're doing it all yourself.
What's the biggest challenge for you guys ahead right now as you're trying to get this new?
I mean, outside of dealing with contractual issues that we won't get into, that'll be come and gone hopefully soon. In all honesty, is the right people. I wouldn't say people in general because we could hire 6 people today. It's building the right culture and building it with the right people that believe in what we're doing, how we're doing it, and want to do this for a long period of time. The insurance world is tough because the Dylans and I of the world, the brokers of the world, have a bad reputation, right? Because we just go out and we sell it, and then we go on vacation, we play golf, and somebody's left to work 60, 70 hours to pick up the pieces, right? And I mean, for a lot of agencies, that's the case, right? I mean, you're paid 40 to 80 grand a year. everything's on fire and you don't have an extinguisher, but you still got to put it out. But by the way, don't bother me because I'm
playing golf.
I play golf.
You got early tea time.
So making sure that we don't create that type of environment, right? Making sure that we've got the right people that we don't want them to work past 6, but man, if they're picking up the phone and they're getting on their email and they're making sure that they're invested, that's awesome. I'm going to tell them to stop. But deep down inside, I'm going to thank them greatly for making sure that the people are taken care of, right? Or getting up to go to the 7:30 a.m. breakfast with the client that are giving us. I mean, I got a birthday present. I did from one of our staff. I'm like, why are you buying me things? Like I should be buying you things, right? Like we put you through, hell with, and you still smile. So I need 4 more of those, right? So finding those at the right price and that want to stick around and believe in what we're trying to do. I think that's going to be the biggest hurdle. Honestly, I mean, a lot of people are going to say, well, finding the right clients. Northern Colorado is so unique that the big gorillas, right, the giant corporate companies don't stand a chance up here. People want to do business with people that are from around here. Yeah. And I think, now that we're 20 years here, we can have the native. We can put the native bumper sticker on the back of the vehicle. We can say that we're from here. I think we've done enough in the community to get a good reputation as to why we're here. Now we just need to make sure that we're getting in front of the right people to do business with and the right people behind us to make it last the next 25 years.
And that's the biggest thing with every single entrepreneur I talk to right now, clients. Hey, what's going on right now? What are you struggling with? Right people.
Mm-hmm. Or enough.
They're out there. I mean, the right people are out there.
Yeah, I talk a lot about this. I mean, people are, if anything coming off COVID did anything, it taught them that they're going to be more judicious with where they spend their time and who they spend their time with. And back to the values thing, right? There's a lot of people who showed their true colors during good, bad, or indifferent, depending on what you believe. And if you're at a company that didn't align with your core values, you're going, does this really want to spend the next 10 years of my life?
Yeah.
And so I'd say this all the time on the pod. And when I consult with people who are having the same issue, it's, you got to do a better job of telling the story of what it's like to work there before they ever fill out the application, just like you would with building any kind of relationship. And so better recruiting strategy.
We just got back from a trip in Philadelphia. We met with incredible partners called Crumdale Partners. And these guys, I mean, they take 6 months to a year to hire anybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, CFO has dinner with them with family. CEO has dinner with their family. Chief sales guy. Everyone has dinner with their family. They get together. So what do you think? Think they're a good guy? Good gal? Good family? Mm-hmm. No? All right.
Any roadblocks? Okay. Nope. No good.
Yeah, they went cream of the crop. Just the best people. Because that's what builds your company.
There's a book called Who. It's actually written by a guy down in Denver. If you haven't read it, it's amazing.
Okay.
It's just a systematic way to get to the A players. And very, very strategic to creating a scorecard, to how you screen people out, and doing it in a little bit more timely fashion than 6 months.
Yeah.
But that's ultimately what they're doing is they're trying to screen out the B and C players and just bring in the A players. Yep. And so you got to know what you're looking for. So I recommend that book. I actually just wrote my newsletter today. The one that went out today was about that, about the voodoo magic of hiring A players.
Oh, yeah.
That's it, right? It was like, we all do that. If you go look at those different profiles, right, you see, the artistic one, like, oh, I just got a feeling about this guy, right? So I'll tell you a story. I used to do hiring with my father-in-law. And if we interviewed somebody in the morning when he's in a good mood, because he's an early morning guy, he's like, I freaking love this guy, right? We could bring in like the ace, like the best person ever. But if it's at 3:30 in the afternoon, he's like, I didn't like him. I didn't like him at all. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Because he was an art critic, right? It was all in the gut, and it was how he was feeling. If he got off a crappy phone call and we went and interviewed that guy, hated him every single time. So, removing the emotion of hiring is crucial as well.
Yeah.
And nobody sends you a bad resume. It's like asking for referrals. It's like, let me call up 3 people who hate my guts. I'll send them right over. It's like nobody does that, right? So your resume is doctored, but they're not necessarily congruent. A great resume, right, is not necessarily congruent with hiring the right person. So, but I highly recommend that book.
How many interviews have you done in your life?
Too many.
1,000?
Over 1,000.
Okay. So when did you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm going to trust my gut. Like I can really go with my gut on this.
Never. The gut failed me too many times. The typical interview process is like this really wide funnel that you then funnel down and you narrow, and you actually want to turn it on its head. So you want to get as many of the like non-negotiables out of the way and the job application. It's like, if this bothers you, these things make you uncomfortable, these are non-negotiables for us. Here's what the income is. Here's what the salary and the income potential is. If you don't understand that makes you uncomfortable, don't even fill out the application.
Right.
If you make it past that, that's barrier number one. And then you get on that phone call and you're actually trying to do everything in your power to deter that person, especially if it's like for a sales type position, to deter that person from actually moving forward. And they should be trying to sell you, but you got to know what you're looking for. So what are the questions that you're asking in order to clarify that? Then you know by the second interview that you're like, okay, I'm dealing with the top of the top, and now I'm just narrowing down of the top of the top who's the best.
I think you bring up a good point that always sticks in my head. If I'm having to sell an applicant on why they need to come work for us, we don't want them. Yep. I mean, it's in that meeting or in that interview, if we're meshing real well and we're hitting it off, and what I'm saying, you're feeding back to me, and it's not a sales pitch like, hey, by the way, we've got free candy and soda, and you can work wherever you want, when you want. You don't have to work, right? And I'm pitching you to the hilt, right? Which is what half these people want these days. I don't want to deal with it, right? Like, the person that tells me when I say, hey, well, you know what, we're going to push this back 8 weeks, and they're like, wow, I was really into it. I really that bums me out because I really want to come work
in 2 weeks.
Like, you're eager, you're willing. Well, let's grab another cup of coffee and figure out why. Why is it? Because you're desperate and you can't make your bills, or it's because you hate where you're at, or you really love. Let's figure out why you want to come work here. And I don't want to sell you on why you want to work here. You convince me that you believe in what we believe in, then we'll ride together, and we won't be going through this that many times, right?
Especially now, it's so easy for people to spray and pray with applications. Oof. So, like the salary and pay question, right? Like, I always put that in the job posting. So if that question came out on the first call, it's like, hey, you know what? Okay, well, we'll follow up if we want to move forward. You didn't bother reading. You didn't prepare for the meeting, especially if I'm hiring a salesperson. And then I structured every sales interview the same way, which is like, hey, so here's what we're going to cover on this call. But hey, before we jump in, the floor's yours. Great salespeople always come prepared with questions. They're already ready. They've already, so if you can't dance, I got red flags going already, right? So you can start to quickly, but you learn those things, right? So you got to structure your interview in a way that then draws out the most important stuff. And we stopped looking at resumes, and we just said, are the people hungry, humble, smart, gritty, competitive, and do they have extreme personal accountability? And how do I structure an interview that tells me those things? If you're competitive, I say, Dylan, what's the hardest thing you've ever done in your life? And you say, I don't know, I lost 100 pounds. I say, awesome. How do you top that? Competitive people always have goals. They're always ready working for the next thing, right?
Yeah.
And so you got to structure your interview to draw up those things, the intangible skill sets, because people are wired the way they're wired by the time they're 21 years old. So, but nothing you put on your resume is really going to change your core attributes about who you are. Yep. And so that's what you're trying to draw out in your interview. But you got to have that on paper, because if you're tired mentally, you're going to make some bad choices, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So we just started documenting everything. This is how we think about the hire. This is the questions that we ask. This is how we score them. This is the scorecard. They don't fit in the box. Any red flags, boom. And doesn't have to take 6 months. But I guess maybe if you're hiring for like a executive level position, it's different.
High paid sales folks, right?
Yeah.
Guys are going to make $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 a year.
Yeah.
You're going to take your time.
Probably want to take your time a little bit. Yeah. Okay. We'll land the plane here. What are the best recommendations? You read a lot of books, right? Yep. Books, podcasts that you think every entrepreneur should be consuming.
It depends on entrepreneurs, like true entrepreneurs.
Yeah, like people who are listening to this podcast who want to go start a business, are running a business. What should they be listening to or reading?
Honestly, man, like I've read How to Win Friends and Influence People probably 30 times. That is by far, that's something I read every year. Brings me back to the basics of just connecting with people.
Yep.
Understanding that we're human. No matter how much technology grows, human.
Yep. And that's one of your superpowers. You know how to deeply connect with people.
Yeah.
Jeremy's probably the ultimate networker. You can connect with people. I'm not saying that you can't, but this guy, you just feel like you're just on this one-on-one date. We're just on a little canoe ride, and you're just speaking in the eyes.
How's a fishing guy?
They're singing in the background.
Yeah. I get them painting a picture.
Fishing guy.
Quiet.
You can't teach that though, right? Yeah. Like, you can't teach hunger unless you take it away from someone, right?
Yeah.
And then it becomes a necessity, right? But there's certain things in our world you can't teach, right? You can't teach heart. There's no way. You either got it, you don't got it. You can't teach passion, right? Because if someone doesn't believe in it, they're not going to do it, right? So those are the big things to me. I'm gonna go two complete extremes on my. So I'm a huge David Goggins fan. I think he Can't Hurt Me, and his most recent one, It's not Never Quit. His most recent book, which is phenomenal. I just listened to it on the whole flight to Pennsylvania and back. I can't read, right? I mean, I can, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting down to read something, I think of 100 other things that I could be doing that are profitable or help my family or mowing the yard. But if I'm in a car, I'm constantly listening to something that either motivates me. So like late 90s, early 2000s punk gets me going, right? I get amped up before I go into sales calls. Or I'm listening to something that educates me. So anything David Goggins, and a lot of people think he's so far extreme, but to me, I relate to the 300-pound guy that he was, that had to cut 120 pounds or 130 pounds just to make it, to go try out to become a Navy SEAL. Like, that's nuts. And he did it in 3 months. Is it healthy? No. But it shows that when push comes to shove, it's what you got to do, right? And there's no excuses. And the complete opposite of that, I actually just went to a leadership seminar, maybe 3 weeks ago down in Denver. And there's a gentleman in Denver from New York. His name is Tommy Spalding. So if you know Tommy Spalding, look Tommy up. First book, Not Just Who You Know. Second book, The Heart-Led Leader, is if you're an entrepreneur or want to start a business, or even if you're a leader inside of somebody else's business, The Heart-Led Leader is a phenomenal book on building culture around doing what's right, not doing what gets you money. And if you end up leading from the heart and handle it that way, the money's going to come way more than just forcing people to do it for money. So I think those are the complete opposite. Know what it takes to get to where you want to be, and then do it from the heart. And I think if you have both those attributes as an entrepreneur, you can't fail.
Have you guys ever read Ego is the Enemy?
Mm-mm.
It's killer.
It's true.
Yeah, I probably listened to it 5 or 6 times. I do a lot of miles, driving to northern Wyoming, Eastern Plains, Colorado, mountains, all over, just seeing clients. Yeah. But what's his name? Ryan Holiday wrote Ego is the Enemy, and it's fantastic for any man or woman to listen to, especially men, to listen to that are, A players that are entrepreneurs. They were probably phenomenal athletes, or they were good athletes. They performed at a high level. Ego is the Enemy it'll just bring you back to, okay, cool. Maybe I should check myself a little bit.
It's such a funny dynamic as an entrepreneur, because you need to have a little ego, right?
Mm-hmm. Have to be confident.
Yeah, but you can't let it get too far ahead of you, because it'll be your detriment for sure.
Yeah, like an ego is really just a shadow over a low self-image, right? You try to just cover it up.
That's good.
Right, your insecurities that you have.
Oh, 100%.
And that's that. I can't remember who told me that years ago. I had a mentor that told me about, just ego is just a shadow over low self-image. But this book seems like that's legit. And he talks about Marcus Aurelius, and most powerful man on the planet at the time. And he's writing, what was the book called that he wrote, that Marcus Aurelius wrote? I forgot. But Reflections, I believe is what it's called. And the most powerful man on the planet. And he's just writing about simple things in life that most people are not even aware of right now. They're too busy looking at their phone, doing this, right? Looking down. How many people just do this all the time? Just looking at their phone, right? Not looking up, saying hi to people, right? I hate being on my phone. I love just putting it down, just talking to people.
Yeah. On that same note, one thing I learned from Tommy, and I'm glad, we'll stay connected too. Plus he's a big hockey dad, right? So that goes well for me. But he said, the average person lives, I think it's till 78, right? 78 years old. You meet 2.8 people whose lives you're going to impact on a daily basis, right? So you multiply number of days times 78 years, right? It's 80,000 people. So you're gonna come in and have an impact on 80,000 people. So when God comes calling, it's your last day, and everybody wants to say goodbye, right? There's 37 stadiums in the United States that hold in or around right at 80,000 people, okay? Mile High is pretty darn close to it. Notre Dame, go Irish, right? It's got same. You're standing at center field, right? It's packed, 80,000 people, sold out for you to say goodbye. What's the noise? Are they cheering for you? Are they booing for you? Or is it silent because what Dylan said, you're they don't even know you because you've been buried in a phone. You haven't even communicated. So what do you want the noise to be on your, stadium, sold out stadium, Taylor Swift tour, farewell? You want them to be cheering for you? You want them to be thanking you? You want them to be yelling at you and screaming at you because you did something wrong? Or do you want it to be dead quiet because you made no impact at all?
Damn. Wow. For me, that's the big point of this podcast.
That's it.
My kids are going to watch this highlight reel one day.
Yeah.
It's going to have influence on them.
Yep.
For sure, right?
They're going to know all the cool people that I was connected to. They're going to be able to take all these little nuggets that you guys are imparting, we're imparting.
Yeah, and you're helping them. You give them a step up in life.
Yeah, exactly. And they're going to know, like, Dad swung for the fences.
That's it.
I love that.
So did Mom.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Mom did too.
Daddy can't swing for the fences if
Dad's got
Mama ain't holding it down.
Dad's got the orange bat. Mom's got the yellow wiffle ball bat, right? Like,
Yeah. I would be an invalid. The house would be just train wreck.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, I'd be back to my college days, just piles of laundry, like sniffing it. Yeah, it smells pretty clean today. Sat out for a few days. It's good.
So true.
All right, last thing. What do you think separates those who become successful entrepreneurs from those who give up, quit, or never get started?
I can share on that. I would say for a married man or woman, their spouse, being extremely understanding really what the goal of their spouse is, and just being tremendously supportive.
Yeah,
like I think that is by far the most important. Keeping the kids, whether it's dad keeping the kids or mom keeping the kids. If mom's working a job, dad's building a business, if mom's building a business. Like, you got to be unified as a family. And I've met a lot of really successful single men, single women, right? But their baby's been their business.
Yeah.
So they don't go home. Like, that's their business, right? They go from working from 12 hours a day to then hanging with partners or peers or carriers or whatever it may be. And they're entertaining and they're out doing that. But they're not a married couple.
Yeah. To me, that's not a life.
No, it's tough. And eventually they'll probably meet their spouse, like a lot of them that I know have, and they have wonderful lifestyles because they've got the money and time now.
Right.
They built their company.
Sure. But
it's beautiful.
They're having kids at like 50.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Right. Or if a dude married a gal that's 15 years, 20 years younger, then he's 50 and he's the granddad at the high school graduation. Like, hey,
just your granddad knows my dad.
Yeah. We all know guys like that. We love them, right?
Yeah.
Those guys are amazing, and those girls are amazing. But your relationship and your support with your spouse, that way they're not chirping at you, because you're working hard and you're putting in hours. That is the most important thing, I think.
I'd agree.
I say there's 3 type of people, right? So the person that was given the business, right? Whether it's second, third, fifth generation, there's someone that has acquired business, that has had the means to buy it, or guys like Dylan and I that have earned it, right? We started, and that comes from an upbringing, I think.
Yep.
And the guys that are willing to, guys and gals, that are willing to fight for it because they've fought for it to get to where they are to start, are going to fight till the end, and we're never going to give up, right? I think to the theme of this podcast, partnership. I mean, to Dylan's point, your spouse is your number one partner. And then the people you do business with are pretty darn close. I mean, you don't sleep together, but there are times you sleep together, right? Yeah. I mean, you got to share one bedroom room when you're traveling and when you're fighting, you're kicking. The people that you do business with, don't call them clients. Consider them partners, because if they're just clients, they don't mean anything to you and it won't be there long term. You create a partnership with the people that you're doing business with and the people that you're doing business for. You're not going to fail. I mean, you take care of them like you would take care of your family, and it'll last as long as you want to work for.
So good. Well, I appreciate you guys tremendously. I'm thankful for our friendship, and you dropped some knowledge bombs today. I can't wait. 1 year from now, can I have you guys back?
Yeah.
I just want to hear the story about how you guys crushed it over 2023 to 2024.
Yeah. It'll be fun. Thanks a lot. This has been awesome.
You bet, guys. Thanks. Until the next one.